When each new set comes out, as fans, we fall in love with Magic all over again, and we do so for as many different reasons as there are new cards. But what about the people who sit in this chair? Let's find out why the men and women of R&D love Dragon's Maze.
We often talk in R&D about how well the card Morphling, considered one of the most powerful creatures ever printed, would hold up in current Magic, because in general the rest of the creatures have gotten so much better over the past few years. So to that end, we made Aetherling, which is a version of that card that absolutely stands up in today's creature-dominated metagames. That thing is a beast. It is unstoppable. It hits very hard. It lives up to the Morphling name even better than Morphling itself did.
Believe it or not, I actually have quite a bit of fondness for a blue common called Uncovered Clues. And the reason why is because it shows Jace looking at a sort of conjured version of the route of the implicit maze itself. And the flavor text talks directly about what the maze is, just telling the player in a very obvious place what the story is all about. It's a good melding of Planeswalker, the image that represents the story, and a piece of flavor text that says, in case you're wondering what this set's about, here it is.
Possibility Storm, I originally thought that Sean Maida designed it because he's super into the gigantic randomness and crazy things going on. And I think I said at one point, it's like, hey, this is a card by Sean Maida, and Zach Hill was just like, no, I designed that card. And Sean was like, I thought I designed that card. And it was just a lot of different people like, we made a crazy red thing. Nobody knows who designed the crazy red thing, but somebody made a crazy red thing, and now it is in Dragon's Maze.
Blood Scrivener is another great Dragon's Maze card. It references Dark Confidant, which was a Ravnica card, hugely, hugely powerful and popular. And it infuses it with a little bit of the original Rakdos of Hellbent. You got no cards? Well, you're going to draw something extra.
Sign of Vitu-Ghazi is one of the cards that I look at and I say to myself, mental note, make a bird lord that doesn't suck.
In Return to Ravnica, Call of the Conclave gets you a 3/3 token for 2 mana. It's on the design team for Dragon's Maze. I thought we really should give you a good 5/5 token. And Armada Worm can do this in Return to Ravnica, but that costs 6 mana, and you need something a little cheaper. So I came up with 4 mana, make a 5/5. And I thought that was pretty spicy, and then Zach Hill gets the set in development and says, why doesn't this have flash? I want to cast this at the end of their turn, or when they're attacking. So he gave it flash, and people thought it was crazy. We played with it. It's pretty good.
I'm really proud to have designed Dragonshift, since we'd used up so much of the design space for Overload already in Return to Ravnica. So it took a little bit of cleverness to find these ones that were a little sideways to things you'd already seen.
I have a soft spot for Plasm Capture because it does a number of things all at once. It's a counterspell with Smack Talk on it, which I always love. It randomly has Niv Mizzet in the art for no good reason other than that Niv Mizzet wants to get involved in the maze himself. And of course, it's got elaborate text that only the Simic would support. I wrote the Simic material, so it's near and dear to my heart.
Cybermen Sanity is a very interesting multiplayer card. Now everybody has to play off the top of their library. Other more controlling players hate what it does. I had all these plans, and now they're dashed to the winds. So I like that kind of conflict, and we'll see what it does.
So Unflinching Courage was a card that I've been waiting for a long time, which is a new Armadillo Cloak. Armadillo Cloak was one of my favorite cards, and it just has this awesome, like, we fixed the lifelink ability on it. It used to have the old version of the lifelink ability. It took us, I don't know how many years to actually make the fixed version of it, but I'm just really happy to see it here.
So Showstopper, I sent out the art description, and it was a total, this sort of Rakdos finale. And to me, ultimate Rakdos finale would just be blowing yourself up. So who else to illustrate that but Steve Prescott? And when it came back, it was brilliant.
Bred for the Hunt does something that as a designer I find very admirable, which is it's a card that's blue and green that feels very blue and feels very green, but at the same time feels very Simic.
Renegade Crest plays into what I think are a lot of players, especially my, just desire to just make things gigantic. The first time I played with this card, I started off and I evolved it and I put some more counters on, played another guy, put some more counters on, and all of a sudden I didn't want to attack so much because the second I attacked, I was just going to kill my opponent. I just wanted to keep getting things bigger and bigger and bigger.
So the card Crisis Incubation, I'm always going to remember because it was just Aaron Forsythe's favorite card in the set. He definitely said at one point during a design meeting, I don't care what happens to any other card in the set, but just keep Crisis Incubation. This is the card that I just want to see printed. And it just this moment of just like, yes, Aaron Forsyth is a human that loves Magic cards, and this is just one of his favorite Magic cards.
So Trostani's Summoner. 7 mana, here's a 1/1. Oh, and here's a 2/2. Oh, and here's a 3/3. Oh, and why not? Here's a 4/4 also. Pretty ridiculous.
I really like Maw of the Obsidian. And the reason I like it is because it really blends nicely what Black likes to do. Hey, let's sacrifice some guy for gain right now. With White of, hey, let's help out the team. We're all in it together. So rather than getting what Black often gets of me, I sacked that guy, I got more powerful. It's, hey, I've sacked this guy, and now we're all bigger.
So Zeratar Druid is a perfect red-green card, produces mana, a green card would, does damage like a red card. But when we drafted, people had wildly different opinions of this. Some thought, that's just a harder to cast mana accelerator, what's the point? And others were just enamored with, I don't have to choose between doing damage to you or using it for mana, and just would pick it really early. I can't wait to see how it turns out in the real world.
Notion Thief. If an opponent would draw a card, except the first one, he or she draws in each of his or her draws. Yeah, what does this card do?
So Goblin Test Pilot was a card from Mark Rosewater that he actually made while he was asleep in a meeting. He was napping in the meeting, which he does because he's super tired all the time. And we were trying to come up with an is it common or uncommon, and he woke up and he's like, what are we looking for? And we told him, and he's like, oh. And then he just comes up with Goblin Test Pilot, and just full form, just this is the card that I want to make. And just perfect for the is it of just this card that, you know, is a flying laser machine, basically.
One of my favorite cards in the set has to be Maze's End. That might be a predictable answer, but for me, Maze's End represents the culmination of a whole bunch of story effort. When we began design development of the block, we didn't really know about the guild gates or what kind of role they would play. As we went and the story began to manifest more and more, and we started fleshing it out more and more, we built infrastructures to support the gates, and Maze's End is sort of the culmination. It's even crown-shaped. You know, it's sort of the culmination of all the story effort. You can just place it over the guild gates like a crown, and it helps players understand the story in a way that cards very seldom do.